to today's beginner Pilates mat session with me, Sue from Fit Panda. All you're going to be needing for today's session is your mat, and if you know that you like to have any kind of supports when you're sitting or lying down on your mat, such as a towel or a cushion, you're welcome to just go ahead and get those at the ready. So we're going to be starting today's session sitting cross-legged, as you can see in the video. So just sitting in a comfortable cross-legged position. If you'd like to already be sitting on something here, you could have a towel, a cushion, or even a yoga block underneath you for you to sit on to give you a little bit of elevation so that you're a bit more comfortable if you need it on the mat. So once we're seated comfortably in our cross-legged position, I'm going to place hands onto the front of the knees. So I'm holding onto my knees. You're right on top of the sitting bones, and as we inhale, we're going to pull slightly through the arms and think about lifting the collarbones, the chest, and the eye line up towards the top corner of the room, as though there was like an invisible ball behind you that you're just gently curving your spine back over. Then we'll face forward again. As you exhale, draw your abdominal muscles in, tuck your tail, and round your spine slightly backwards. So you'll feel as though you're hanging slightly onto your arms while you're here, almost like a seated cat stretch. And then we'll repeat. So you're going to come back up over the sitting bones. As you inhale, start to lift the chest and the collarbones, draw the shoulder blades down for that little bit of extension. And then exhale, we round backwards to sort of hang onto the knees. And we'll do it one more time. Inhale to lift and extend through the spine. And exhale, draw deeply, navel to spine as you round. So your eye line will drop as you round. You'll end up looking towards your own tummy or towards your own legs. And then we'll lift back up just to sit nice and tall over the sitting bones again. Staying here, you can cross your right arm across so that your right hand holds onto your left knee. Your left hand will go just behind you on the mat. You can have it as a flat hand or just fingertips, depends a little bit on the length of your arm. And then we're going to twist to look over the left shoulder. So I'm pulling through the right arm to create that twist. Try to keep the length of your spine as though there was a little string attached to the top of your head, pulling you up towards the ceiling as you go into your twisted stretch. Hold it for one more breath. And then we'll switch sides. So left arm will grab the right knee. Use that right hand that's on the floor behind you to help prop you up to keep the length of your spine as you twist and pull slightly with the left arm to look over your right shoulder towards the wall behind you. Take another breath. And then exhale, let's come to face forward. So we're going to unravel the legs, bring them out in front of you, basically into like a forward spine stretch position. If you were sitting on something for cross-legged, you'll probably want to stay sitting on something for this one. So you'll see I'm hopping up onto a towel, so you could use a towel or something a little bit higher if you need to, in order to get your back nice and straight. Legs are slightly wider than hips, or your feet are slightly wider than your hips. I've got them just on the outer edges of the mat. If you need a little bend in the knees as well, you can have a bend in the knees. In fact, I'm going to suggest, at least for the first one, that everyone has a little bend in the knees, just so that you can mostly focus on your back. And then we'll bring the arms out in front of the chest, palms facing each other. So the spine is lengthened as though you had a wall behind you that you're sort of resting yourself against. And then just the arms are going to start to float up in the shoulder joints until they are also touching on to your imaginary wall. So arms kind of in line with the ears. Turn palms to face forward, and then we're going to draw a big circle with the arms, like a little snow angel with your arms around. And then we'll dive forward into your forward spine stretch. So focus on the stretch being in your back, that length running through your spine. Don't pull too much through the arms. The arms are just going along for the ride. If this feels comfortable for you with the bend in the knees, you can try to straighten the knees out a little bit more to get more of a stretch into the back of the legs as well. Take a breath. And then we're going to roll back up against our imaginary wall, vertebra for vertebra. Once the head has lifted, you can take the arms back up again, take a breath, draw your arm circles around and dive your way forward. So you're rounding the spine forward and then thinking of reaching the top of your head through your feet towards the top edge of your mat, or bottom edge of the mat, I suppose would probably be the correct word. You want it to feel like a combination of stretch between your legs and your back. Take a breath. We're going to roll back up. We're going to do it one more time. So you're going to stack against your invisible wall. Float the arms up Take a breath in, circle them around, and then dive into your last forward spine stretch. This time we'll let the arms help us a little bit, so you can hold onto your legs. So your right hand will hold your right leg, your left hand will hold your left leg. Anywhere that feels comfortable. Maybe you'll even be holding your feet rather than your legs. And then pull slightly through the arms to try to go a little deeper into that stretch. Trying to draw your chest a little closer towards the mat. Don't worry too much about your nose getting close to the mat. We're not pushing the chin into the chest or straining the neck. Just finding your stretch and holding it for a breath. Then we'll release the arms, roll back up through the spine and bring the legs together in front of you. We're going to set up for some roll-ups. So you don't want to sit on something for the roll-ups. If you were sitting on something, move it out the way. However, if you like a little bit of support on the mat underneath your lower back in your roll-ups, you can use a towel like I've done just behind me. So you want that towel to be about 5 centimeters away from your kind of sitting bones. So you've got a little bit of space between the towel and your body. You want to have enough runway behind you on the mat as well to make your way all the way down. Let's start by trying to be as tall as possible, balanced on the sitting bones, legs squeezing together. From there, I'm going to start to curve the spine gently forward over my hips, so you're looking towards your legs. Breathe in. And then keep the curve of the spine and slowly start to roll down into your mat. If you feel like you're losing control, you can hold onto one of your legs. So lift your leg and hold it so that you can use your leg as a little counterweight, because we're going to roll all the way down. As soon as you don't need the leg anymore though, you just let go of it. Once the head is down, the arms are going to reach back behind you as far as your shoulders allow. Then we float the arms back up over the chest. As you breathe in, you're going to curl your head and your shoulders up so that you're looking at your toes. And we're going to exhale to peel the rest of the way up off of the mat, coming until again you're leaning your shoulders just forward over your hips. So I'm not going as far forward as I physically can here. We're just leaning slightly over the hips to keep the rounded shape of the spine. Keep drawing in through your abdominals. I'm not slouched, it's a very active position. We take a breath and let's go again. As you go down, you're going to be looking at your toes and you're going to try to go as slowly as possible down into your mat, vertebra for vertebra. Maybe using a leg if you need it, or keeping that support of the towel behind your lower back. We finish with the arms stretching back behind you. So the palms are still facing each other. So it'll be the thumbs of the hands that touch the floor if they make it to the floor. And then arms will lift. Chest lift on the inhale. Exhale, let's peel slowly up through the spine, vertebra for vertebra, pausing with the shoulders going just past the hips. Now for the next one, we're going to add on a little bit. So don't go too far. We're going to take a breath. And you're just going to roll off the back edge of your sitting bones. So kind of like quarter of the way down, but somewhere that you know that you can sustain it. So don't go too low. Really tuck and pull in through your tummy muscles so that you can stay here, turning the palms of your hands to face down towards the floor. We're going to go into our hundreds breath pattern. The arms are moving from the shoulder joints, so nothing else should be moving. It's not a bounce, it's just the arms pumping up and down. You're going to breathe in, prepare, and then the arms move with the breath as you exhale. For 5, 4, 3, 2, and then inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, and exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, and inhale, 3, 4, 5, and exhale, and 2 more, inhale, 3, 4, 5, and exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, and inhale, 4, 5, and exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you can pause just here so the arms will stay still as you take one more breath. And then we will complete the roll down vertebra for vertebra into your mat. Once the head's down, the arms can go back to stretch the arms behind you. You can take a little moment here, stretching from fingertips to toes, like you just woke up in the morning and you're giving yourself a good stretch, because we're going to stay on the mat. So now that we're down, if you had a towel underneath your lower back, move it out the way. We're going to slide the feet onto the mat, so you can bend the knees to bring the feet onto the floor, and bring your arms into a low V position with the palms facing up. So your hands will be just off the edges of your mat. Use that position of palms facing up to help you feel the openness through your chest and collarbones. Settle yourself into the mat and have your feet and your knees touching. So you're going to have the legs squeezing together as though you just have one giant leg instead of two separate legs. Then from our neutral, your pelvis should feel very weighted, the center of the pelvis, and we're just going to rock the pelvis gently from side to side. So of course the legs will rock with your pelvis. As your pelvis goes to the right, your legs will go to the right. And then as your pelvis goes to the left, your legs will go to the left. You can rock like 2 or 3 more times each way. We're just starting to loosen up the lower back with a little gentle twist. The arms are just staying in place. Eyes looking towards the ceiling. You can go one more time each direction with your little rock. Then we'll settle the pelvis back in the center of your mat. So you'll come back to the middle. Open the toes out like you're a ballerina going into first position. Then press down into the toes, lift the heels and bring them in line with your toes. So we should have now separated the feet and the knees to about hip width apart. So kind of like you would normally have it before going into a pelvic curl. Back of the neck should feel nicely lengthened with a slight tuck of the chin. And now, of course, we are going to go for a pelvic curl. So from your neutral spine, you feel that little bit of space underneath your lower back as you inhale to prepare. On the exhale, we're going to start to tilt the pelvis towards the rib cage so that your lower back starts to press downwards towards the mat. We'll lift the tailbone off the floor and then slowly peel your way up through your spine to come up into your bridge. So once you've reached the highest point that you can go, that you feel like your tailbone is still tucked, the weight's in the shoulder blades and the feet, you're going to squeeze into your glutes, grip the feet firmly into the mat, take a breath, and then we're going to melt back down again. So you're going to articulate down through the spine, ribs closing down into the mat first, pelvis coming onto the mat last. Relax back to neutral. You might feel that your head will move slightly as you come back to neutral. Breathe in. And we go again. So we tilt the pelvis in underneath us, lift and peel up through the spine, coming into your bridge position. The arms are still in this low V position. The collarbones are broad. Imagine that you're actually trying to pull your feet towards your body. So they're super glued on the mat. They're not actually moving. But that feeling of trying to pull the feet towards your body is definitely going to activate the hamstrings a little bit. And then we'll take a breath there and exhale to roll down. Try to feel all the little spaces between the vertebrae of your spine as you come back down into your mat. Once we've landed back to our neutral position, we're going to bring the arms beside the body, palms facing down. So you'll bring your hands now onto the mat, 2 straight arms, pressing down slightly into the back of your arms. And just check before we go anywhere that your feet are not so far away from you that you will struggle to lift your heels off the floor, because we're going to add some heel raises into the next one. If you feel like you need to bring your feet a little closer for that to happen, you can, or you can even do it once we're up there if you find it's too far. So we're going to go back to your bridge. Inhale, prepare. Exhale to tuck, and then peel the pelvis up towards the ceiling. So your bridge position, you should feel like you're a straight line running from your shoulders over your hips towards your knees. Keep the tuck of the tailbone and try to keep your hips exactly where they are. And we're going to do a single leg heel raise. So just your left foot. You're going to lift your left heel up off the mat, so you're just on the toes, and then tap it back onto the mat. And again, so we're sticking with the left leg. We're going to lift and tap. And of course, because the heel is lifting, the knee will also go a little higher, but try to keep your hips at the same place. Let's go for 4 more and tap. 3 more with the left foot. 2 more. And last 1. Then ground the left foot on the mat, and the right heel is going to lift and tap. And lift and tap. 4 more with the right leg. Lift and tap. Last 3. Last 2. And your last one, last heel raise. Then ground both of the feet back into your mat. Keep your hips lifted. Grip through the feet into the floor so that your arms can become light. We're going to float them up to the ceiling and then reach them back onto the floor behind you with the palms facing up to the ceiling. If you struggle to get your hands on the floor, you can let your elbows bend a little bit so your arms are more in like a diamond shape. But I do want the back of the hands to touch onto the floor. They're going to stay there as you take another breath, and we're going to melt down through the spine, leaving the hands on the floor behind you as you articulate vertebra for vertebra back into your mat. Then we'll settle back into our neutral pelvis, neutral spine, interlace the fingers, glide them in behind the back of your head so that you are resting your head into your hands. Create a nice strong hammock for your head here, so elbows slightly lifted off the mat, and your arms are just fixed in this position, shoulders nice and broad against the mat, and then our feet are going to feel light. So I'm not really using the legs for a chest lift. Your legs just stay in place, but other than that, they're very inactive. We're going to take a breath, expand through the ribs. On your exhale, we're going to start to curl the head and the shoulders up over the rib cage. Keep your elbows kind of just in your peripheral to avoid pulling with the arms. The lift is coming from your tummy muscles. Take a breath while you're here, looking at your knees. And then exhale slowly, lengthen your way back down through your upper back until your head is back on the floor. Breathing in, we go again. Exhale to curl the head and the shoulders up over the rib cage as though you are sliding the bottom of your rib cage towards your belly button. Inhale there, and exhale, we lengthen back down. The feet just stay feeling light against your mat. Breathe in. And exhale, we're going to curl back up one more time. So you're going to curl the head and the shoulders up over the rib cage. We're going to stay looking forward towards the legs. So keep your chest lift. Reach just the right arm out so that when you bring your right leg to tabletop, you can place your right hand on the back of your right thigh. Use that arm for support before we float the left leg up to tabletop and take the left hand around to hold the back of your left thigh. So you've got both legs lifted. Use the arms to come up into a nice high chest lift. The higher you come, the easier it is for the neck. And then we're going to stay here for single leg stretch. So you're going to place both of your hands on top of your right knee. You can pull that knee slightly in towards you. I'm not pulling it as close as I can, just slightly closer than tabletop. And then reach your left leg out on like a 45-degree angle from the floor so that your left leg is straight. Then tell your tummy muscles to take over so that you can stay here as you switch your legs and grab the left knee. Switch and grab the right. Your upper body doesn't move, just the legs, and you're just switching the hands to the left. And we go back to the right. And the left. One more time each leg. We go right. Finish by holding your left leg. And then as your head goes down, you can hug your left knee into your chest and rest your right leg just straight out along the mat for a little hip stretch. So you want to feel that little squeeze into the hip. Think about that length over the right hip and the right leg as it lengthens into the mat. Holding it there for another deep breath. And then we will switch the legs. So you're going to give your right knee a nice hug, a little squeeze into the hip. Your left leg is now reaching out along the mat as a straight leg. Hold for another breath. And then bring both knees up towards your chest and place your hands onto the back of your thighs. So you're holding onto the back of the thighs as we breathe in. Then we're going to curl the head and the shoulders up off the mat. So you're going to come back into a chest lift so that you're looking at your knees. And then bring your legs into tabletop. So your knees will be above your hips here, 90-degree bend. Abdominals again are going to take over because I want the arms to be able to release with the palms facing down towards the floor. You just hold it for 3, 2, and then as you go down with your chest, your head can rest, your arms will go up to face the ceiling. Turn the palms to face each other and then open your arms out into a T position. So arms are one straight stripe from one hand to the other. For your spine twist, the legs will stay either in tabletop, but if you feel that you're struggling, just place the toes lightly against the mat. So you can have your toes for support against the mat if you need it. Otherwise, we're going to keep the legs like this for a spine twist. So shoulder blades stay grounded against the mat as we tilt the pelvis over to the right. So I'm demonstrating there the little toes on the mat. As we tilt to the right, the left hip and potentially the left foot will lift off the mat if you've got your toes touching the floor. Then through the center and over to the left-hand side spine twist, going as far as you can that the shoulder blades stay grounded against the mat. Inhale as you twist either with the toes on the mat or with the legs in tabletop. Keep your neck relaxed. So if you want to follow the movement of your legs, try to follow just with your eyeballs, kind of following your legs rather than your whole head moving. You're going to go for 2 more each way. can go in your own time. Feel that twist through your lower and mid spine. Keep the legs squeezing firmly together the whole time, so those knees stay stacked against each other. Once you've finished your last one, just bring everything back to the center before gently placing one foot at a time back down onto your mat. I will give you a moment just to finish the moves. So wherever you are, you want to make your way to the finish line. Once the feet are back on the floor, we're going to interlace the fingers, glide the hands behind the back of the head again. So you're back in a chest lift position basically. Legs becoming light as though your feet were just resting on the surface of very thin ice, so you can't push down too much with the feet. Inhale, prepare, expand the ribs again. Exhale, let's curl the head and the shoulders back up over the rib cage. So back into a chest lift, looking at your own legs. Then keep the height, but releasing, we're not releasing the arms, I'm lying. Stay exactly where you are. Keep the height of your chest lift. We're going to go straight into rotation. So you're going to rotate your chest towards the left, lifting that right shoulder blade up over the left one to get the twist. Come through the center as you inhale and then rotate over to the right. Without the legs moving, we go one more time each way. The pelvis should be staying pretty much in neutral, but if you start to feel your lower back is hurting, tuck your pelvis slightly. Make sure your back feels supported as you rotate. After your last one, you can center for an inhale and then lengthen back down into your mat. So definitely when the head is back on the floor, you should feel like you're in a neutral spine. But as you lift your body, the lower back may start to gently touch the mat because you're kind of stretching your back as you come up. Breathe in. We're going to do it one more time. So you'll curl back up into chest lift. Keep the elbows nice and wide. Take a breath and then rotate over to the left. Look just past your left thigh. Inhale, center, and rotate to the right. One more time each way. Rotating. So your arms are only moving because your rib cage is moving. Focus on the movement of the ribs. After your last one, come back to the center. Keep your chest lifted as you reach your arms forward towards your thighs so that when you go down with your shoulders and your head, your arms can just stretch all the way back behind you to rest on the floor behind you. We'll keep the arms reaching back behind us and straighten the legs out one at a time along the mat so that you're back basically in like a roll-up position. We're just going to do one roll-up to come up to sitting. So the arms can float up. Inhale to a chest lift. Feel free to grab onto a leg if you get stuck, but we're going to peel our way up off of the mat until we can come all the way up to sitting. And then we'll stay in a seated position. Try to sit as upright as possible. So again, if you need to sit on something, now's your chance to grab your cushion or your towel as I'm doing so that you can sit with a nice upright spine. Legs squeeze together with a soft bend in the knees, so enough space under your knees for like a squirrel or a really tiny dog to get in underneath your knees. Feet are flexed so that your toes are pointing up towards the ceiling. Focus mostly though on the length of the spine. So if you feel that you now need more support to sit on something, or if you need to let your knees open slightly, you can let that happen. The most important thing for me is that your back is upright. Your arms are going to go out to a T position, palms facing forward. Take a breath and then start to twist towards the right-hand side of the room. So your upper body is going to twist, but your legs and your sitting bones shouldn't move. So your sitting bones stay against the same place on your mat or on your support. Come through the center and then twist the other way. Inhale through center. Exhale as you twist. So the arms are going along for the ride. They're just twisting with you to shine one way. Then through the center, shine the other side of the room. You can go one more time each way. Take your time about it. Make sure you're really getting that twist through your waist. And when you feel that you are done, we'll go into our butterfly stretch with the soles of the feet together. Your knees will open out to the sides of the room. You can pull the feet in a little closer towards your body so that you can hold onto your feet or your ankles as you lean forward over your legs. Taking 2 deep breaths here in our stretch. You can use your elbows to gently press the knees out to the sides of the room. And then we'll unravel those legs back out in front of us. You won't need to sit on anything for the next one. So if you were sitting on something, you can move it out the way. We're going to keep our knees bent, feet or legs squeezing together, and step your hands back for back support. So that's roughly 3 steps back with your hands behind you, both hands. So your arms or your hands are about shoulder width apart. Fingers are facing out to the sides of the room, so not facing behind you, out to the sides. If you need more space for your shoulders, take your hands a little bit wider on your mat. And then we're going to straighten out through the spine as though there is a plank against your spine. And that includes your neck. Everything is nice and straight. Press down as strongly as you can through your arms before you do anything else. So your arms are working overtime. Your hips already start to feel light. And then all you need to do is add the push with your feet into the mat, and you'll press yourself up into back support, lifting the hips. And then hinge back down again just to tap the mat. Keep pushing through the arms, and we lift again. For 3 more, it's up to you how high you go. Maybe it's just a little lift off the mat. Maybe you go all the way into this little reverse table position. We've got 2 more. Keep squeezing the legs together and tap the mat 1 more time. Exhale, press up strong through the arms. And then hinge back down again. This time you can put weight into your hips so that your hands can release, and they're going to come around to hold onto the back of your thighs. So the legs are in the same position as we had them before, but now we're holding onto the legs. Tuck the tail in and round your spine backwards away from your thighs so that you roll off your sitting bones like a little half roll back position. Then the feet are going to slide towards you until they feel light enough to float just up off the floor. Stay holding the back of the thighs. Lift the eyes to look over the top of your knees and lift your feet slightly as though you want to get your feet almost in line with your knees. Then we'll stay here. We're going to keep the rounded shape of the spine. So draw inwards through your abdominals the whole time. Stay just off the back of your sitting bones. Stay with your left hand on your thigh, but release your right arm so that your right arm's just reaching out with the palm facing in. And your right leg is then free to straighten out away from you, go down to almost touch the mat. Then it lifts back up to your starting position, and you can hold on with your right hand. And then we're alternating. So you'll release the left arm, let your left leg reach out, almost touch the mat. Exhale, brings it back up. Right leg goes out and down. Exhale, brings it back up. Left leg goes out and down, brings it back up. You can keep a little bit of support with one hand at a time, or if you're feeling strong here, you can try it with both arms releasing and then just doing the leg movement. So one leg reaches out and then comes back in, keeping your back in the same place. Other leg reaches out, comes back in. One more time, each leg, reach and in. Finish with the left leg reaching, and then place both hands behind the back of your thighs again, so back where we were before. Let your legs feel quite heavy in your hands, so they're like a little counterweight to slow you down as we roll back into our mat. So we're going to come to lie down. Once you're down, you can place your feet one at a time gently back on the floor and set up as though you're going to go into a pelvic curl again. So if you've gone off the edge of your mat, just come back onto your mat so that your head's on your mat. And then we're going to set up like a pelvic curl, but the leg position is going to be slightly different in that I'm going to lift my right ankle and place it on top of the left knee. So your legs are making like the number 4 shape. Flex through the right foot, so the foot that's in the air is kind of active and not just floppy. And then we're going to do almost like a single leg pelvic curl. I'm going to say single leg bridge actually, because we're not going to articulate the spine. You're going to keep your back in its neutral shape and kind of vacuum pack it into that position. So there will be that little bit of space underneath your lower back. Then from there, it's just a hinge. So your lower back will never actually touch the mat. You just push into your left foot to hinge your hips straight up towards the ceiling. So you're flattening out the hip joint, opening up that right hip, and then you hinge back down. So the pelvis will drop towards the mat without rolling through the spine. Let's do 2 more. So we just press and lift. You want to squeeze your left bum cheek as you press up, and then hinge back down to tap the floor. And let's go 1 more time. Hinge up, feel that openness through the right hip socket, the right knee out to the side of the room, and then hinge back down again to land back in your neutral spine. And then we'll switch the legs. So right foot on the floor, left ankle on the right knee. So your left knee now is kind of opened out towards the left-hand side of the room. And the same thing, without actually changing the position of your back, just push through your right foot, hinge up. So it's just a pure hinge. It's a little bit more glute work, and we're just working in moving the hip joint without changing the shape of the spine. And then hinge back down again. So you kind of drop back into neutral. I say drop, but do it gently. And 2 more. We press up, and then we gently hinge back down to your mat. 1 more time. Press up, and then hinge back down to tap onto your mat. Place your left foot back onto the mat, hip width apart from its friend, so that you're really now truly set up for a pelvic curl with the arms lengthened down beside you. So now we are going to do the full articulation of the spine. So it's not a hinge, it's going to be a roll. So you'll breathe in, prepare. Exhale, tilt the pelvis towards you, then start to peel the tailbone up off the mat and roll up through your spine vertebra for vertebra into your bridge position. Hold your bridge. You might just be able to let your gaze sort of look down towards your hips. Make sure your hips are the same height. If you can't see your hips though, it's okay. Just kind of feel that they're at the same height as we send all of the weight into the right leg. So squeeze your right bum cheek, really make your right leg strong so that your left leg for a moment can float up into a tabletop position. And then we'll place that left foot back down on the mat. Realign the hips because possibly your left hip went down a little bit, and then pull the weight into the left leg and let your right leg become light and float into tabletop. Place that foot back down on the mat. Realign the hips again, squeeze equally through both legs. Take a breath and then articulate down through the spine, 1 vertebra at a time, melting your back into your mat until you can relax everything back to its neutral shape. Then from there, we'll roll over to lie on our side. So you can just flip over, pick a side. And we're going to be propped up on our elbow to start with. So I've got my elbow underneath the shoulder. As you can see, I've got my whole forearm down on the mat. Bottom knee can be slightly bent forward. Top leg is going to be completely straight though. So your top leg is pretty much in line with your body. Push strongly into your bottom arm so that you're not sinking into your shoulder. You're keeping the space under the armpit and underneath the bottom rib cage. And then the top hand can just lightly rest behind the back of your top ear. Be wary though of pulling your elbow backwards behind you. It's going to go very tense into the shoulder and the neck. Keep your elbows slightly forward so that you can see your own elbow out the corner of your eye. Then we'll float the top leg up about hip height or slightly higher. Flex actively through the ankle of your top leg so that leg is very straight and active, and then hinge from the hip to bring the leg forward. Then point your ankle, take the leg back in line with your body, and then keep your pelvis slightly tucked and try to pull the leg slightly back behind you. So that comes just from the bum cheek. Flex, exhale, we hinge forward. Point, inhale, we hinge back and squeeze the glute. Exhale forward, try to keep your upper body still. Inhale back, keep pushing through your bottom arm. And point on the way back. 4 more, we're halfway. Get a nice strong flex and point through the ankle. Think of your ankle as being part of the exercise. And back. Last 2, eyes are just looking straight out in front of you. They might just be able to see your foot as you bring the foot forward. And back, and you can go 1 more time, forward and back. Bring the leg back in line with your body 1 more time, and then lower it down towards the floor. Then we're going to bend the top leg so that you've got both of your knees bent and stacked together. And then just push your knees slightly backwards so that they're in the center of the mat, and your feet will end up pointing straight backwards behind you. So I've got a 90-degree bend in the back of the knees. The elbow will stay underneath the shoulder. Keep the push through that arm and rest your top hand just palm flat down on your top thigh. You're going to keep everything facing straight forward. So everything is just facing in the same direction before you press down into your arm and your knees to lift your hips up off the floor into your side plank. Gently lower back down. Just check that as you go up, you're keeping your shoulder above your elbow. If you need to bring the elbow in a little bit, you can. and we press back up. But it is a lot of work in that bottom arm. You're using that bottom shoulder, and then gently down. We've got 3 more. Exhale, lift and down. If it starts to feel very tense in your neck, you can let your eyes look down to your bottom elbow, the elbow that's on the floor. And down. We got 1 more. Exhale, lift through that bottom waist, push through the bottom arm, and then gently lower yourself all the way down towards the floor. Sweep the legs around to the other side of your mat, or just turn around so that we can do everything on the other side. So the good news is now that arm gets a break and the other arm is going to take over. So elbow under the shoulder. We're starting with your bottom leg bent to, it's still about a 90-degree bend with the knee facing slightly forward, but that foot of your bottom leg is kind of underneath your top leg. Top leg out completely straight. Keep the space under the armpit. Place your top hand lightly behind the back of your ear. And then we'll lift that leg about hip height or slightly higher. But whatever height you've chosen for that leg, try to keep it at that height so it doesn't get lazy and start drooping down towards the mat as we go. So we're going to hinge from the hip, bring the leg forward so you can admire your own toes. And then point your ankle like a ballerina, try to pull the leg slightly back behind you. Exhale as you kick forward. Inhale as you pull back. Keep the height of the leg the whole time. Try to keep your upper body still. There's going to be these little micro movements of your upper body because the weight distribution is changing, but we don't want to move too much. You don't want your whole body swaying with your leg. And we've got about 4 more. And back. And 3. Keep your breath flowing. Eyes looking forward. Last 2. And you've got 1 more. Exhale forward. Inhale back. Finish with the leg in line with your body before you lower it back to the floor. And then bend your top knee so that your knees are together. Scooch them backwards a little bit so they're in the middle of the mat. So your elbow and your knees should be kind of on the same invisible line. If you had a line on your mat, or maybe your mat has those sorts of seams on it, knees and elbows on the same one. Top hand flat on the top thigh. Check your elbows underneath your shoulder. Before we take a breath, prepare, and then exhale, hinge the hips up and gently down. What sometimes happens is that as we push up, we push ourselves away from the elbow and you might have to adjust the position. Feel free to do that. We've got 4 more. Lift and gently down. And remember, you can always look at your bottom elbow if your neck is taking strain. Lift for 3 and down and 2. Come down gently. We're not crashing to the mat. We're just tapping the mat before we do our last one. Press up, use that bottom waist, and then gently lower everything down towards the floor, turning yourself around to lie on your tummy. So we're going to lie on our tummies, arms out in a goalpost position with your legs about hip width apart. So I have got a little bit of space between the legs. The legs are parallel, so knees facing straight down towards the floor, heels facing up to the ceiling. And the arms are in a true goalpost position. So the elbows are in line with your shoulders and you've got a 90-degree bend in your armpit and a 90-degree bend in your elbow joint, palms facing down. So for sure your elbows and your forearms and your hands will all be off the edges of the mat here. They won't be on the mat unless you're really, really tiny or you have a really big mat. We're going to pull the tummy muscles in and up. And then from there, just focus on a feeling of lengthening through the spine so that your head and chest float slightly up off the mat, but they're not going very high because I want the arms to stay light. Then your upper body will stay here. You'll stay looking towards your mat as your left forearm, so that whole forearm as one single unit, floats up off of the floor to about 2 centimeters up off the mat. As the left one goes down again, the right one is going to lift up off the mat. And we switch. Left one lifts as the right one goes down, and then the right one lifts. Let's do 1 more, alternating left and then right. Then place both of the forearms back onto the mat. Grip your hands into the floor and imagine that you were trying to pull your chest forward and through your arms. So your hands are going to grip into the floor to get that feeling of pull. As you do that, try to lift the head and chest a little higher. So creating more of an arch with your upper back as you imagine that pull. Then exhale, lengthen back down to look at your mat with just a slight float of the head and chest off the mat, because we're going to repeat the whole process. So starting with just the left forearm floating up off the floor, make sure your elbow isn't going higher than your hand. It's lifting as one single unit, and then back down. Then the right one lifts. And we switch left and then right. And one more time, each arm left and then right. Then plant both of the arms onto the floor. Grip with your hands onto the floor like your hands were sticky, like you were a kind of gecko or a lizard with little suction pads on the hands. And then try to pull your chest forward and through so that you become proud like a sphinx, and the eye line and the chest lift to shine out in front of you. Exhale to come back down again to examine your mat. Let's do the whole thing one last time. So the arm movement as we lift one arm and then switch to the other is mostly going to be shoulders working, a little bit of upper back, floating one arm, then the other. One more time, only the arms are moving, nothing else. Keep the hips still, keep the head still. After your last one, plant the hands, suction them back onto the floor. Think of pulling yourself forward and through as you inhale to lift through the upper back. And then exhale to come all the way back down to look at your mat. Slide your hands in underneath your shoulders and push yourself up and back into a rest position, taking the sitting bones back towards your heels. If you need a bit more space, you can open your knees out a little wider so that you've got some space to press back into your rest position. Arms stretched out in front of you. Keep this in this lengthened position of the spine. Find something comfortable for your head to rest on, so the front of the head resting on your mat. And breathe. 2 deep breaths, stretching out your back. Then let's curl forward again to be on your hands and knees. So we're going to come back to 4-point kneeling. Hands under the shoulders, knees underneath the hips. Video Sue's going to get there. There she goes. Okay. So setting up in a 4-point kneeling position, and then we're going to stay here. So spread the weight out through the palms of the hands. I'm looking for a kind of neutral shape to the spine and a neutral pelvis. Keeping the upper body completely still and trying to keep your lower back relatively still as well. You're going to lean the weight into your right knee so that your left leg can stay bent, the knee stays bent, but inside the hip, you're going to lift your left leg out towards the left-hand side of the room, like a dog that's just found a very convenient fire hydrant on the left-hand side of it. Then still fighting to try keep your spine still, take the left leg around behind you, so you're going to circle in the hip, keeping the knee bent, and then lower it back to your starting position just to graze the mat before we go again. Leg goes out to the side, back and around. Keep your upper body still, keep your elbows straight. Let's do 3 more. Side, back, squeezing the glute and around. Draw your abdominals in and up. 2 more circles through the hip. 1 more time, circle through that hip. Then land your left knee back on the mat so that you can now push down into your left knee. Fire hydrant has moved over to the right-hand side of your mat. Lift the right leg out towards the right-hand side and then circle through the hip to take the leg back and then back in underneath your body. So side, behind you, and down. 3 more. Side, behind you, and down. 1 more time. 2 more, 2 more, and around. And then 1 more time from there. Side, out, and around. Bring both knees back onto your mat, hip width apart. And then we're going to slide the hands back towards the knees and slowly roll our way up through the spine until you're in a kind of tall, high kneeling position. From there, tailbone slightly tucked in. We're going to take the arms out towards the side. If this isn't comfortable for your knees, you can fold up your mat, make it a little bit softer for the knees because we're going to be staying on the knees. And we're going to do some shoulder rotations. So my arms are completely straight. I know my elbows look a little wonky, but I have got straight arms. And I'm going to rotate from the shoulders all the way around until it feels like I'm trying to turn my palms to face up towards the ceiling the other way. And then roll back around. So I'm doing the same movement with both arms. Spiraling through the shoulder sockets as far as you can one way and then spiraling back the other way. Inhale to go one way into internal rotation, exhale into external rotation. And we spin for another 6, and around, and 5, and around, and 4, and around. Last 3. By now the shoulders are probably starting to burn a little bit. 2 more, and around. One last time, spinning in one direction and then back in the other direction. Then from there, we're going to skip all these little guys. We're going to come straight back to 4-point kneeling. So lower your hands, come back to where you came from. Tuck the toes in behind you. They're still hip width apart. Get a nice straight back and strong arm position before pushing up into your downward facing dog. So we're going to send the sitting bones up towards the ceiling. Get the back nice and straight. Wrap the shoulder blades around your rib cage. And then while you're looking at your legs, we'll give them a little alternating stretch. So you can let one knee bend softly as you press the opposite heel down towards the mat to stretch that leg. And then switch for the other leg to press down. Go for 2 more each leg, looking in towards your own legs, alternating one at a time, and a switch, and a switch. After your last one, you can either just join us standing in whatever feels like a comfortable way for you, but if you're happy to stay here in your downward dog and then start to walk your hands backwards towards your feet. So it's a lot of push through the arms till you're standing on your feet again, so that we can just slowly roll up through the spine 1 vertebra at a time. And it's the first time we're standing the whole class. Okay, we're going to stay here to do some squats. So you're going to open your feet out a little bit wider than your hips, with the toes slightly wider than the heels. I'm just turning so you can see what I look like, but you can stay facing forward. Tuck the tail in slightly. Try to hold your spine in neutral as you start to hinge your hips back and bend your knees. So as you drop into the squat, you can bring your arms out in front of you as a little counterweight. Make sure your knees are staying over your feet, that you're not pushing your knees forward. And then press through the heels to straighten out the hip joint and come back up. Inhale to go down into the squat. Exhale to press up. And let's do 2 more. You go as low as you feel that you're comfortable in your knee joints. Press up 1 more time, drop, and press. Then we're going to add a little bit on to the next one. So we're going to do almost like a little imaginary 1-leg jump. So you'll drop into your squat just as we did before. So I'm going to go down, arms go forward. From there, you're going to lean the weight over into your right leg so that you are mostly pushing through your right leg to come back up, and your left leg is then free to potentially float just up off the floor. Try to find your balance there. Make sure that you place your left foot exactly where it came from so that you can drop straight back down into your squat. Lean into the left leg, press up on the left-hand side, float your right leg up. So think slow motion jump, carefully landing into your squat and then pressing over to the right-hand side to find your balance. Landing into your squat, pressing over to the left-hand side, find your balance. Make sure you're straightening your legs. You got 2 more. Straighten the legs, lift on the right, and drop. Straighten the legs, lift on the left. 1 more time each way. We go down into the squat and press up on the right leg. Down into the squat, press up on the left leg. Do 1 more squat and push through both of the feet to press yourself all the way back up again. From there, if you're still looking at your mat, you can stay as you were. If not, just readjust so that we can lunge onto the floor and drop back down onto our hands and knees. Hands under shoulders, knees under hips. You can flatten out the ankles and the shins. We're going to go into our thread the needle stretch. So you'll lean the weight over into your, let's say, left hand first so that your right hand is free to lift, and thread palm facing up just past the inside of your wrist. You're going to keep reaching until you kind of gone down onto the right shoulder and the right hand side of your head, as though you're reaching for something deep underneath your bed or underneath your couch. Keep the support of your hand that's on the mat as you twist yourself to try to face as much as possible towards the ceiling. Hold it for a breath in your little twisty pretzel position, And then push through the arm to lift yourself back up, unravel, and we'll switch to go the other way. So leaning into the right arm, threading the left one through and down to come into your twist. Keep the support of the hand that's on the mat. Hold for a breath. And then press back up again. Once you're back up, straighten the legs out. Stay as you are. Stay in 4-point kneeling. Spread the weight out comfortably through the hands. If the wrists are really straining, you could also do your little mini plank on fists if you want to make fists onto the floor. And then tuck the toes in behind you. The back stays exactly as it is, nice and broad in the upper back, support from your abdominals, and then float your knees, so push through the hands and the toes until your knees lift off the mat by like a centimeter, and we hold for 5. Breathe deeply while you're here. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Gently lower your knees back to the floor. And now we will slide the legs out behind us along the mat. So you're going to come to lie down on your tummy. You're going to come straight into this position here. Okay, so I've got my hands underneath my head, underneath my forehead more or less. Draw your abdominals in and then have the legs squeezing actively together. We're aiming for the heels to touch. And you're going to float your legs just up off the floor. So make your legs feel very straight. Activate through the kneecaps, keeping the legs together, keeping a little bit of push into the arms so your upper body feels strong. And we'll do your double leg kick. So you're going to try to keep them together. It's okay if the knees open slightly, but we're going to try keep squeezing the knees together as you bend your knees to about 90-degree bend. And then you do 3 little pulses into the back of the knees there. 3, 2, 1, and then straighten your legs back out. Keep them floating. So keep squeezing your glutes. Try to keep your knees lifted off the mat even as they bend. They stay lifted and you pulse. 3, 2, 1, and then we reach back out. We've got 4 more and bending to pull through those hamstrings. 3, 2, 1. The only thing that's moving is the knees, not the rest of the body. Try not to let your whole body bounce. It's just the knees. 2, 1, and reach. We got 2 more. Bend and pull. 3, 2, 1. Try to keep squeezing your legs together for the last one. Bend and pull. 3, 2, 1. Straighten the legs one last time and then lower them all the way down to the floor. Then just do a little surface area check. Make sure that you have space for your arms to be able to circle all the way around your body like you're doing breaststroke. As you can see, I'm kind of demonstrating a little bit in the video there. If there are things in the way, move them out the way. Your legs will stay as they are together. They can stay on the floor though for this one, so they're still resting. Then the arms are out about shoulder width apart out in front of you. And I'm just on my fingertips. So the arms are slightly lifted and my fingertips are lightly touching the floor. Your head will be lifted slightly, so you're looking at your mat. And then let your arms or your hands start to become light so that they can start to slide backwards behind you as they reach all the way back towards your feet. Keep them straight, keep the palms facing down, and see if your chest can lift slightly. And then just reverse. Bring the arms back around in front of you. Your chest can lower, your fingertips can touch the floor. Inhale as straight arms circle around like a wing movement with your arms till they're reaching back and feel those triceps, and then reverse to come around. So the elbows are staying straight the whole time. 4 more. Inhale, they circle around, the chest lifts slightly as you reach for your feet. Exhale to come back to your starting position. Last 3. Inhale, extend and reach. Without squeezing into the back of your neck, make sure your neck isn't getting tense. Last 2, inhale, extend, reach. Exhale back around. 1 more time. Inhale, extend and reach. This time you can keep your arms reaching back behind you and then just lower everything back down towards the floor. Bring your hands under your shoulders. Push yourself up, open your knees out to go back into your rest position. Taking a couple of deep breaths as you stretch through your back here. Let your head rest against the mat as you inhale to expand your ribs. Arms resting. And then we are all done with today's session. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for joining.